Hi everyone, it's Pamela, and I wanted to offer you a couple of tools and techniques to work with, particularly in acute grief. And that is the time immediately following your loss of your loved one. It could be anything from hours to days to weeks and early months. And I love to work with creativity. During this time in particular, studies have shown that repetitive tasks and creative tasks greatly support the nervous system and help with shock and trauma and grief brain and brain fog and all the kinds of things that are so prevalent in early loss. So I'm going to offer you a couple of different techniques that I think will be very helpful for you. And I recommend you start working with these right away. So one of the things is starting a creative journal. Most people are familiar with writing in a journal and writing down their thoughts. But what I like to suggest is that you do a creative journal. So you can get a blank page journal, and as you're writing with different words and you're saying, you can write down your feelings, your experiences, but I want you to embellish it with drawings and colors and shapes so that when you're communicating your feelings, you're not just drawing from the front brain that thinks in words and like full sentences. You're pulling from the non-conscious part of your mind. And that subconscious is where your feelings and emotions are, where your physiology is governed. This is where dreams come from. And symbolism is the language of that part of the brain. It's the deeper subconscious part of your mind. So, it can be anything. You can really just do sort of just a download and a dump of anything that comes up, and really just almost be doodling. So, it can be, maybe somebody brought flowers for your loved one and they're a bright pink, and you're just reflecting on this as you journal. And what you're doing when you use creativity in this manner is you're actually creating flow, and you're allowing yourself to process and move and deal with things, even if they're not verbal or not conscious. Because these really big feelings immediately following loss, which are so overwhelming that we end up with shock and, kind of shut down and grief brain and brain fog and all of those things and trauma, is that they're so much larger than what we can articulate. So instead of it just being words, which is fantastic, but I want you to also embellish and use the non-conscious, non-verbal language of symbols and colors. So you could be drawing just your memory of these beautiful flowers that perhaps somebody brought to your loved one. You could be just even if you're not capturing or reflecting anything you saw, you're using this language of symbolism and color to just move feelings. So it could be anything that comes up, without judgment and without blockage. Judgment is a block. And this is no time for that. This is a time for flow and releasing of feelings and sentiments and ideas and anything that pours out of you, and you can get it on paper in this way. So it can be drawings, words, colors, shapes, symbols. You can do something that's called a brain dump, and that could be it's also called an emotions dump. And this could be, well, this is me right now. And, this is how I'm feeling. And I'm doing this completely non-consciously. I have no idea of what I'm going to draw. And that's the way I want you to do it. Just dive in. Colors, magic markers, colored pencils, paints, finger paints, anything that you have at hand that works for you. So I don't know why, but I've just been doing a class on holistic health when grief. So I'm just going to make this little artwork in the middle here. I'm just going to add different elements and say, well, this is me in the middle. and I can just do whatever I want with it. And maybe I'll just do little ways to attach these things. I'm just completely doodling at this point, and I'm just putting it out on the page. So part of an emotions dump may be, well, right now I'm actually feeling somewhat peaceful because I did just do this class for you on releasing tension and using the body. So frankly, it feels very peaceful right now inside my head and my body, but that may not be how you're feeling. So you draw whatever feels right for you. You may say, well, I'm feeling a little bit nervous because I have to plan something tomorrow or make some phone calls I never thought I'd have to make. I want you to give these things different shapes and different energies, and you're dumping it out and you're saying, if you can read my handwriting, that's nervous. Maybe I'm giving it a little bit of like a barbed wire feeling on the edge because that's just how I feel about it. And the important thing about using any kind of creative work or art therapy for grief work is there's zero judgment. It is not about the finished product. It is about the doing and the flow. So this isn't about what this looks like. It's about how it helped me move my nervousness by writing it, drawing it, giving it colors, giving it shape, and putting it out of my body and out of my nervous system onto the page. So you may also be feeling, whatever you're feeling is what matters. I'm just going to put in here, I'm feeling sad, and I'm going to make that look like a teardrop. And I can color that in, and I can make the words look different, and I can make the words symbols. In fact, I might do an eye and have it be shedding a tear. Again, it's definitely not about the finished product. It's about the flow and the doing. So this mind map or this brain dump or this emotion dump, as they're called, could also be, I'm feeling somewhat grounded and rooted because I just did this exercise, and I'm just going to draw a tree and with strong roots that go down into the earth, because that's how I'm feeling, because that exercise was so grounding for me. And I want to really anchor that feeling in my mind and in my subconscious and in my nervous system. And using symbolism and creativity and drawing helps you do that, because it's not a linear conscious mind thing. So I'm going to add some brown to the roots, and I'm going to take them deep, and I'm going to have the roots split into more roots. And I'm going to remind myself as I do this, I'm going to tell myself a story that feels supportive, in that I read an article how trees intertwine their roots and they support each other. So I can do another tree over here, and that can remind me that I'm never alone. Even if I feel alone, I am rooted as part of life in the earth and with nature and with people that care about me and with my connection to spirit and my connection to my loved one that never goes anywhere, that's always with me. So as you're doing your mind dump, brain dump, emotion dump, you could be expressing yourself as well and telling a story. So you may not even be, you're not trying to make an accurate representation of the story. You're using every tool at your disposal to move the feelings that you're feeling. So in fact, because I want to remind myself that I'm always loved and I'm always connected to my loved one, my loved ones, I'm going to draw a little bird in this tree, and I can draw another little bird in this tree. And that just makes me happy thinking about this bird and this life, and look at that. Maybe it's a blue bird of happiness, that someday I will feel that way when I see a bird, a little bluebird. They always make me happy when I see them. And then you may also have other feelings where you're feeling frustrated because of something that's happened, and you can give that a completely different shape. and color, and you can give it different dimensions. It doesn't matter what it is. The only thing that matters, you know, I'm thinking of building blocks now. When you're a kid and you're trying to stack these building blocks, and that might be frustrating. So it's very non-conscious. You aren't planning it out. You're just dumping these feelings and anything that comes out onto the page. So one other feeling that I might have is that I actually right now, and I never push this with grief work, but right now in my ability to teach something and to share something with you, I actually feel quite grateful that I am able to do something that may help you with what you're experiencing right now. That means a lot to me. So the next exercise I have is called the wandering line. And the wandering line is just what it sounds like. And this, again, includes a story. So what I'd like you to do is when you do this exercise, I'd like you to speak out loud of a positive memory of your loved one. Now, this is not occluding anything you're experiencing right now. You may be feeling all the depths of grief and sadness and loss and everything. And doing this exercise, what I want is for the grief and the loss and the trauma and the sadness to not occlude the person or the loved one you lost, the essence of them. I always say that, you know, this is not part of the wandering line exercise. This is just me demonstrating this. This is the life of your loved one, this giant expanse. In fact, you can even do a timeline. That would be a very powerful exercise as well when you're ready. A timeline of all these powerful moments in their life, you know, that they got married, you know, that they fell in love, that this is when they were born, and, you know, this is when they, you know, started this company, this is when they went on that vacation with so many fun stories, this is when they then met, you know, their best friend. All these different experiences happen throughout a life, and this bit right here, this last little tiny bit, that's them passing away. Even if there was illness through a lot of their life, or trauma or hardship, I do always like to have people have this representation that, you know, when we're in grief and when we're missing and we've just lost our loved one, that all of the focus ends up right here. And so at some point doing this timeline helps your heart, it helps your heart remember this whole loved one, not just, especially if it was a traumatic loss, not just this. So that was just a spontaneous idea. Again, it's very non-conscious. You're not consciously saying, oh, well, I don't want to focus just on their death. I want to focus on their life. You're just doing this and drawing it out because the deeper aspects of yourself know what to do with this. They know what to do with this more than the front mind, the conscious mind knows. Conscious mind doesn't know what to do with this because it doesn't work in symbolism or colors or emotions or bodily functions or, you know, any of the, or spirit or, you know, your physiology, nothing. It works in very linear, its job is to judge and to assess and to try to keep you safe. Don't cross the street. Don't do this, do this. But that's not where all of this grief experience is happening. So the wandering line is, let's pick a color. The wandering line is, I want you to find a story. Just since we did this first, let's say, you know, that vacation, you know, that was that cruise and, you know, everything went wrong, but they had the best time. They made the best of it, whatever the story is. And what you start doing is you just start this line. And you wander and meander without any plan or purpose. You can go wherever you want, but the important thing is you're telling this story. Now, I'm just going to make this up because I've never been on a cruise, and this is not about any of my loved ones. This is just about me telling this story of hearing about this wonderful vacation where all these things went wrong and they missed all the ports, but they had the best possible time because they danced every night until the wee hours. They ate all the food, they drank the drinks, they lived the life, they met 3 new couples as friends, and this was one of the best vacations of their lives, and it never would have come about if everything hadn't gone wrong. And really it came about that just using these moments and taking a bite out of life in this cruise that could have been such a nightmare but ended up being so much fun was such a big aspect. And that was the story that this person told at every Thanksgiving, and then that was something that we always remembered, and now we're going to tell that story, and we're going to laugh, and we're going to raise a glass to them, and we're going to go on a cruise next year on the anniversary of their birthday, and we're going to... That's the wandering line. And you can fill up this whole page with that. And what that is doing is that is anchoring a neuro pathway in your mind of this beautiful memory that is a part of their life and is a part of how you knew them. So that's wandering line. And that's a really powerful exercise. And one other very powerful thing for right now during your acute loss era, as I like to call it, is just doodling. It doesn't matter what you're drawing, you just doodle. And the important thing is you do create some repetition, and that you make something. You can just be doodling little hearts. You can be doodling little spirals. Spirals are very powerful. And what you're doing by doodling in this repetitive task is that it helps take your nervous system out of fight or flight and into a more rest and repair state. Because we go into fight or flight when we have shock or trauma, and many people go into it in acute loss immediately following the loss of your loved one. So if you're sitting somewhere, I want you to find a blank page journal, get some markers or colored pencils, crayons, colored pens, whatever works for you, and pack this with you. And when you're having some downtime, or you're in between appointments, or you're just sitting doing nothing, and perhaps you're starting to feel some anxiety or tension, we're not trying to stop feelings, and we're not trying to start them. We're only honoring them, and we're helping them flow in a healthy way. But this doodling, whatever it is, this can be anything. I mean, you just can make it up. I've never drawn anything like this in my life. You can just make it up and keep going. And this does something in your brain that helps calm you and helps flow this energy of sometimes trauma and anxiety and shock. So these are all helpful tips for acute grief immediately following the loss of a loved one. Doodling. The wandering line. Remember, the wandering line, I want you to add with a story. I want you to add a story with the wandering line, because you're taking that front brain and saying it out loud is really, really important. Because what you're doing is, the mind looks for fear, it looks for problems, it looks for danger, the conscious mind. And so when you're in shock or trauma, or you're immediately following the loss of a loved one, it can really be spinning out of control. And this helps contain the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, which, by the way, the subconscious is 90% of your mind. The conscious is only 10%, but it thinks it's in charge all the time, and it thinks it's the boss. The power is in the subconscious, and creativity and artwork are the language of the subconscious, as are emotions, movement, music. Like, all of these forms of creativity are the language of the subconscious. I happen to like this timeline. I often do it a little bit later in grief work, not immediately following a loss. But if this feels right to you, don't overthink it. Just do it as you're drawing it out. That's what matters right now to me. And then we have the mind dump, or the brain dump. The mind dump that can also be with emotions. and that you're giving these emotions different symbols and different feelings. I might just make that whole thing a peace sign. That, you know, maybe I want little flowers around that. Everything must be done without judgment. Not about the finished product. Again, I have to say this a lot because this is what we do. It isn't about the finished product. It's about the doing. So I'm thinking of you, and I am here for support and to help you with your loss and your grief. And I am sending you so much love and comfort from my heart to yours. Take care.